and welcome to Vesco Speaks. Today is Friday, October before Halloween. This was episode 183. What? We just talked on Monday, right? Or Tuesday? No, Monday. I know. Earlier this week we just talked. But as I explained last time, if you did not see the last episode because, like, you don't check your iTunes feed every other day, because I don't know what that would be like, but I did just do another episode this week that had all the talk about Rhinebeck and the kid-along that's going on in the shop that will actually be running through, not in the shop, in the Ravelry group, which will be running through November 15th. But then this week I'll actually talk about the knitting and the spinning. There will be talk of shameless self-promotion at the end. There's a shop update on November 11th that will contain Christmas and holiday bags. It will not be the last update of the year by any stretch of the imagination because, hi, taxes are almost due. Quarterly taxes. But it'll be the last time that any, like, what I would consider like Christmas specific bags are. And I know some of you get freaked out about stuff being early, but then don't buy one. I like to have my holiday themed bags before the holiday, because if I'm working on Christmas presents, it's kind of fun for it to be in a Christmassy kind of bag or a wintry bag. But I don't in any way want to rush your enjoyment of November, because I really like November too. Anyway, that was Mary rambling for no good reason. So I'll talk about that. But first, in administrative things, I just want to talk briefly. If you donated to the podcast up until October 31st, so that's Monday, you will be entered to win a prize. Which I see the prizes, did you forget? In no particular order. We have Champagne Wishes and Caviar Dreams from Lollipop Yarn. Joe does such great work. These are amazing. They'd be great for 2-color shawls or cowls or hats or whatever you would like. Or make them into 2 different things. I don't care about judging. And then, highly coveted self-striping. What? I think this is her beefcake base, which is the sport, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, yes, it is. I love a sport weight sock. It's kind of like fingering weight. You can still wear it in your shoes, but it goes so fast. Like, normally if I do a 64 stitch sock on regular needles, like regular fingering weight, then I only have to do a 60 stitch sock on sport weight. And I know that doesn't sound like a big difference, but when you are talking about a sock for like a 10-inch foot with, a 6-inch cuff, like, that adds up. I can't think of the rows per inch right now, but I mean, that's a lot. Okay. So this is her colorway Indian Summer. So you have the main color, and then you have for heels and toes. And then also I have my On the Spice Market. What? That I finished with Madeline Tosh Yarns and Miss Babs. And it is lovely and super awesome. So you could win that too. Right. I'm just saying you could win all of these prizes and more. No, not and more. My love and adoration. Ding. If you'd like to make a donation to the podcast, you can do so at ijustmessedupmyhair.com. No, at thefatscroll.com. If you're on a regular PC, or if you're on a regular desktop, there is a yellow PayPal donate button to the right. And if you're on a mobile device, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom page and you'll find the same yellow PayPal button. Right? So much shameless self-promotion. It's intense. So anyway, your donations are greatly appreciated. They help keep the podcast going, in compensation for time and resources and all that good stuff. I am not a nonprofit organization, so your donations should be not called donations, but help me dollars maybe. Yay you dollars. That's what they should be called. Your yay you dollars are greatly appreciated. Okay. Knitting and spinning. No. Oh, I want to talk really quickly. There are a ton of shenanigans. A tiny shenanigans. Last night I totally adulted in a social way. I totally did. When we were on our way to Rhinebeck or on our way back or something, whatever, I was talking in the car with Janice Spring and Malia, who was Ryan's from Malia, and we were talking about board gaming groups, and there's several board game stores in Indianapolis that just cater to tabletop. Whether that be like what I would consider a board game, or like Magic the Gathering, or, you know, or there's also this big war games, or like Dungeons and Dragons. Those kind of all fall under the same like non-video games kind of umbrella. Anyway, so a lot of the stores in town though cater more towards they're not called living card games, but the collectible card games, I guess. Is that what you call like Magic the Gathering and stuff? And so their stores tend to be staffed by usually dudes who are into those things. Not that they're not knowledgeable about other tabletop games, but there seems to be like a general vibe of condescension, maybe. Now maybe that's because like they are just socially awkward, or maybe it's really because they're being condescending. Whatever, either way, the experience is not particularly pleasant for me as a customer. So I have wanted to support those stores in terms of like in like a theoretical way. In reality, I actually don't want those. I don't care if those stores are there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know I'm supposed to shop local, but those businesses aren't really servicing my needs, so I'm not going to shop at them. So, and this kind of started because I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we had like a ladies board game night? And I was trying to, because I thought, well, maybe we could convince one of these stores to do that. And I was like, but then I would have to interact with those people that own that store or run that store. And that did not sound particularly fun to me. So Joanna Spring was telling me about a store on the north side of town called Family Time Games. And that was just the delivery person texting to tell me that they had delivered my package. Or emailing, excuse me. I find that to be very strange. But anyway, so she was telling me about this place called Family Time Games and how she had talked to the female owner of the business. I guess that they're a family that owns the business. Yeah, no, I get it. And they actually do have a ladies tabletop night. So I guess it's the last Thursday of the month. So we totally went. What? It's true. I was scared. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I knew that I felt like I would have fun. And usually if I just do the things, I will have a good time. But sometimes it's hard to get myself to that place. But it was very helpful that Joanna Spring was going to be there. So that at least, like, if it would be a crazy disaster, that somebody else could be like, whoa, that was a crazy disaster. I'd be like, yeah, I know, right? Because that's helpful in life. But it wasn't a crazy disaster. It was actually quite fun. And beyond the first, 15 minutes, which were very awkward. Okay, it wasn't even 15 minutes. It was 5 minutes, but it felt like 45. Where you're doing the social stuff, and then you're trying to figure out who's gonna ask you to be at their table, because it does have a little element of that. Not in an intentional, or it's just the basic logistics of how this system would work, which is that the owner of the shop puts, I guess she kind of curates several options for the evening, and then you go up and you choose what game you want you're gonna play, and then you need to get people to play that game with you. So that feels nobody made it feel awkward. It's just it is very you're on my softball teamy. You know what I mean? But it was very fun. So we got to play. We played this one game that was yeah. It's about it's like a horror movie, and you're making it plot lines for horror movies by collecting cards and then playing them to win this pool of victims that are in the middle. So it was very Halloween appropriate, and it was fine. It just was not that stellar of a game, but it certainly would be fine if you had a bunch of people you didn't know very well. And you're just looking for a filler type game. But then we got to play, I just forgot what it was called. Betrayal at House on the Hill, is that right? I think that's right. And that was kooky wacky but fun. It's a cooperative, it's cooperative to a certain point. and you're exploring these this like haunted mansion, and your characters have different abilities, and you're finding like these creepy items that will help protect you from the end of the game. But cooperative games are always excellent to play, especially when people don't know the rules specifically to a game, because nobody ever feels like they're just out in the cold. There's always somebody else who can help you because you're all working towards the same goal. Until this thing happens, there's a mechanic in this game that at a certain point the gameplay changes and one of the people becomes the bad guy. I can't think of what it's called now. And so you have to go off and read special directions, and they read special directions, and the special directions are crazy pants. Apparently there's like 50 different scenarios, and like I figured since it was called Betrayal or House on Haunted Hill or Betrayal at the House on Haunted Hill, or I figured it was going to be, and it's like a spooky mansion thing, right? I just figured it was going to be like all ghosty ghoulies. We got aliens with floating eyeballs. What? But it was still fun, and it was very scary to be the one person who had different rules, but it was still fine. And then we played Kodama, which Joanna Spring had talked about before, really enjoying, so I knew that I would enjoy it as well. But dude, that was a beautiful game. I highly recommend that one as well. So that one's called Kodama. I don't have either of those games to show you, but I definitely have my eye opens for purchasing copies of those because they were fun. Maybe we should talk about knitting and spinning now, though. I have a lot of knitting and spinning to show you. Are you ready? I'll try not to make this just like the longest list of boredom, but it might happen. Also, I should probably try to make note of these things as I talk about them, because I'm sure that when I get to show notes, I'm going to be like, wait, what? What did I talk about again? So anyway, okay, so the first thing that I'll talk about is what I am wearing. Now, what I'm going to talk about is what I am wearing. Oh, this is not a new project. This is the Ricky, R-I-K-K-E hat, and this is just some hand spun. Ricky continues to be one of my favorite hat styles. It's just garter stitching around, which you can either do traditionally or through one of the many alternative options. I use the method that Paula of Knitting Pipeline made a video about, which is where you knit your first round and then you wrap and turn your work, so you're looking at the inside of your work, and then you knit around and then you wrap it. You do get a bit of a bump. See that? But in these hats that are slouchy like this, you especially I don't think you see it at all, because really a bunch of that is covered up on itself. It's like folded over on itself, so. But my sweater, I finished my hero sweater in time, and it's Hero, H-I-R-O. So this is my handspun hero. The lighting is awkward in this position. It looks a little bit pilly. It's actually not. It's just handspun, and my handspun is not in any way perfect. And also this lighting is kind of weird. What? That's right. I highly recommend this pattern. Obviously, a million people have made this sweater, so you know it's going to be a pretty good pattern. And everything that's inconsistencies would be worked out by now. But it comes in cardigan and pullover. This obviously is a pullover. I obviously modified it to make short sleeves. I just cast on and did the ribbing in the main color, and then joined them to the body for the yoke. This is a really good pattern if you want to do a yoked sweater, but have a large bust. It can be challenging to decrease enough for your upper body. Like the largest part of my bust is 54 or 56. I think it's actually 56, but I do -2 inches of ease. So let's say we'll just say 54. And then my upper bust is 46. So to decrease that many stitches out of the front of a sweater can be challenging when you're trying to do patterning. Because as you can imagine, like if the pattern is written with like an actual picture yoke versus like that's like a graphic like representation of reality, or even just a graphic design, it can be more challenging to decrease those stitches out because you're going to mess up the picture. However, this pattern is just written as like snowdrop, like as just powdery color transitions, so they almost look like snow transitions. And so it's very easy to decrease out those extra stitches if you need to do that because you're decreasing for a larger bust. Differential. How's your larger bust differential going? Is that differential calculus, the area under the curve? Is that just like the nerdiest boob math joke ever? Anyway, that was lame. But anyway, so I highly recommend it. Again, and the first time I made a yoked sweater was in like 1998, I'm guessing, 99. And I made it way too big. Whatever. I was in college and I was wearing really big clothes because I was ashamed of, well, I wasn't ashamed, but it was just uneasy about clothes touching me. Now I don't care. But so it had a lot of positive ease. And it was also just a time when you kind of knit that way. Like there was this thing where you knit percentages of positive ease versus inches of positive ease. So somebody who wore a pattern, you know, I think in fact Elizabeth Zimmerman's patterns are written like, not her patterns, but the percentage system is like, let's say that a pattern is written with, I can't think of anything. But let's just say 10% because I can't do math. That's ridiculous. But let's just say it's 10% ease. So like if you're a 30-inch person, then you have 3 inches of positive ease. That's fine. But then if you're a 54-inch person and you have 10%, you have 5.5 inches of positive ease. So like that was kind of like how I was taught to think about making sweaters, was just this percentage system. And really it ends up having way too much positive ease if you're a bigger person, and it just gets proportionately more and more crazy. Does that make sense? What was I even talking about? Yoke sweaters. In that, the yoke was always way too long, and so I would end up with an armpit that was like below my bust line, and it never just, it felt weird and it felt like it didn't fit right. And of course then you have that patterning extending beyond your widest point, and I felt like it made it even less flattering. So like it was not attractive, it was not a flattering option, it was not a good fit, and so I just thought that it wasn't for me and my body type. But that was not the case at all. I think it's easier to go for a shorter yoke, and again, if you are decreasing for a larger bust differential, to go with a pattern that is either more abstract or has solid lines in, like if it's like a Fair Isle kind of pattern, that it has some solid lines in it where you can work in decreases and not affect the overall look of the pattern. Does that make sense? I hope so. Anyway, I recommend it. Ding! This is handspun CVM. There's some handspun there's some handspun Three Waters Farm up here. There's some Peace Fleece in here. And there's some handspun from somebody who I don't even know if that's old, how old the handspun is. Really, I had no intention of making this a handspun yoke sweater. But I realized I didn't think I had enough of the brown. Or if I did, I thought I was afraid it was going to be kind of tight. And I didn't want to do just a plain brown short sleeve sweater, because originally I thought I'd do like a Miranda or something. So I kind of scrounged around and found something that I thought would work. And actually, I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. And it's very comfy and lovely and good. Okay. Normally I talk about spinning first. I guess I should go back to that since now I've talked about what I am wearing and that's done. Okay. So I have some finished spinning. Actually, I have a good amount of finished spinning. Right. Just saying. So I have this, which is Spun Right Round Tarhi in the Turtle Paste colorway. And this is 152 yards, and it's chain plied. Isn't that fun? What? And it is super squishy. It's 152 yards, so it's like very bulky and fun, and it smells like Tuft Woolen soap, and I just dropped my iPod, and that's exciting. So there's that. Always fun to work with her fibers. And then I have this 7 ounces of tricolor Rambouillet, which was actual, comb top, farm roving. Not that it was processed on their farm, Although I guess it could have been, I don't know. They have those woolen machines, but definitely a woolen prep. Fun to spin, uneven, but I dig it. And really what I had intended to do with this, as I'll show you in the next project, I actually bought this to ply with a hand-painted top, 4 ounces that I had, but because this roving was so roving-y and so very not comb toppy, when I was spinning it, I was afraid it was so feathery looking and so, I was afraid, I did like a little test and when I applied it together with the comb top, and I was afraid it was really going to overpower the top. And it was going to be a subtle yarn anyway, so I decided that I would go ahead and just make it a 2-ply of its own gray self. And really looking at it now, you know, it's such a difference when after you wash and process your yarn, a lot of that cloudiness really kind of compacted down with applying, but I still think I think this was the better idea. I think what I did was the better choice for me. So, wink. So that was 7 ounces, is about 400 yards. So it's probably like a DK. Hey, thank you. You'd think we lived on a street where people drove up and down it all day long. I think the dogs would stop barking at things. I don't know what else they're doing. So yeah, there's that. And then there's this, which is actually not quite dry. Even though it's been drying for like 2 days, we're now into that transition between fall and winter where the heater's not on, so the air in the house is not completely desert-like yet, which I don't look forward to. But it's still kind of cool outside to try to dry stuff. So it is still damp, but this is 12 ounces of Rambouillet. The combed top color, the hand-dyed combed top, is from Spun Right Round. It's her Dirty Bird colorway. I wish I had taken a photograph of it before I spun it, but it was this very, Spun Right Round does beautifully, like, well, this is her fiber. Right? Like, she has these super fun, intense, bright colors. I mean, this is another one of hers. But this was a club colorway, I think, and it was beautifully subtle and just washed in these like creamy blues, like creamy sky blue. Like, so it was sky blue, but not in that really cool way, but like in a warmer, creamy way. And this kind of rosy color and these warm browns. Anyway, so I really liked it. I wanted to be more than just 4 ounces. So I thought, oh, 3-ply, and I wanted it to be fat for some reason. So I decided to 3-ply it with natural. Now, it has made, I think it's made something that I do like. It's not exactly what I had intended. I think ultimately I would have maybe liked it a bit more if I had 2 plies of the hand-dyed with 1 ply of the natural, because as I was done and I had just a little bit left of the bobbin, I did do that and it was very pretty. But this is very different than what I usually spin, and so I am excited about that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I never spin anything this softly colored. So, and I think it's going to be so squishy and fat. Yay! I don't know why I would like that. So yeah, that. So it's 12 ounces and it's something, I haven't even measured the yardage on it. But it's definitely a fat, it's like a bulky. Yeah. Anyway, it smells still very sheepy. Yay! And so that, again, that was the hand-dyed that I originally got to go with the gray. But I decided ultimately that I needed a comb top to go with it. Because, again, you can see that it's very, I don't want to use the word overpowered because that sounds so negative. But it is definitely tamed down quite a bit by the double strands of the natural color. So if that natural color had also been roving instead of comb top, I think I would have been ultimately like, mwah. And also that, of course, that fiber was darker. So yay that. Okay guys, I already feel like I've been talking way too long. Okay, finished object. What? Now we're doing knitting. Transition. I don't know if you'll recall, But around SSK actually, so that was back in July, I started working on a stripe study. Leslie of the Knit Girls had talked about it briefly on the podcast, that she really liked it because it was great. She felt like it would be good retreat knitting because there's stuff going on, but not so much stuff that you can't talk and do it. And I agree. This was a very enjoyable knit. Yes, it is a lot of garter stitch, but there are short rows involved. And so again, it has enough going on that you're like, oh, okay, I gotta do that now. Oh, okay, I gotta do that now. And so this green is Spinach Souffle by Fat Cat Knits, who is taking a bit of a time off. It's beautiful fiber. And then the ochre is Swan's Island Sport Weight. And I think this pattern is written as fingering weight, but you know, whatever. And so I really dig it. It was very fun to knit. I had moments where I was like, that is too much of those colors, but now I totally dig it. So when you're knitting on something, sometimes you just need to put it down for a little while. Yay. And this shape is definitely weird. Did you see it? It is definitely very asymmetrical. So you have like a very deep short width triangle and then a very same depth but over a much longer expanse on this side. But it wears very nice. I wear most of my shawls just kind of like as big scarves anyway, versus the over the shoulder scarf. So the asymmetry doesn't matter so much. But I did actually put that on my arms as like just an over the shoulder but like asymmetrical so that the point was over here and it still sat on my arm as well. And I think it would work that way too. Okay, so where's the progress? Should I show you everything? Goodness gracious. Oh, I don't have to show you that. Yay, I showed you that last time. Those were my pasted canvas things. Okay, so just 2 works in progress, and then I'll let you go. Oh my gosh, look at my stitch marker, by the way. This was given to me by a most lovely young woman at Rhinebeck, who I first met, I think 3 years ago at my first Rhinebeck. And she was 11 and now she's 14. How cute is that? Anyway, I really cannot show you how cute this little owl is. He's like a little hand-knitted owl on a jump ring, being crazy cute. Like, look at me and look at my feet. This project is the Upstairs Downstairs Cowl by Paula Emmons Feasley of Knitting Pipeline fame. This is hand spun. These are 2 bats that I purchased from Joanna of Knit Spin Farm. These are, I can't remember what the fiber content is, but they were called 2 gallons of honey, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's it. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But so I cast this on to take to Rhinebeck, even though I know 26 hours in the car. You'd think I'd have like 40 finished socks. If I was Yarn Hoarder, who by the way has her own podcast now. If I was Yarn Hoarder, I'd have like 97 pairs of socks and 5 sweaters done by now. But I have this. I'm not a great card knitter. And then in the back seat, I'm especially not a great card knitter. Oh, but isn't it pretty? So I highly recommend this. This is another great pattern if you are doing social knitting. Because yes, there's stuff going on here, but it's very basic. And then you just got a garter stitch. And use it in a fun hand spun yarn that you make from Joanna Springs Farm bats. Because she makes beautiful bats and they are always crazy fun to spin. And I have 2 giant orange ones up there that are waiting in the queue. I think I'm going to do this next. She was talking about, I didn't even think about this. Joanna was talking about photographing, because she uses all natural stuff except for some sparkle. But she doesn't use like that soy silk or the milk fibers or faux cashmeres or anything. And so her bats always spin up really well for me. But But she was talking about how it's really hard to photograph them because they don't have that really shiny stuff in them. So they're not like all like duck facing at the camera. And it makes perfect sense. I never realized it, but that's what it is. But that, because they are matte finished like that, they spin beautifully. So I highly recommend her bats. Okay, and her bags. Okay, and her face. And her sheep. And all the sugar pies. And all those things. Her podcast and stuff. So that's happening. And then one more. It's because I socialed last night, so now I'm socialing with you, and that's like a lot of socialing for me to happen in 24 hours. It's too much of my voice. So, last podcast when I showed you all the things I bought at Rhinebeck, and I was so proud of myself because they all fit in my arms, I lied a little bit, a lot of it. I lied for Skainsworth. On Sunday of Rhinebeck, we were all doing that, like, okay, we've seen all the things, and we're going to meet people for dinner later, so we're just kind of going to sit on this hillside and knit in the beautiful scenery and enjoy the pigs in the petting zoo and just be like, yay, life. And so we're sitting there, and it was about 20 till 5, and the show closed at 5. Let's just say that. But it was like 20 minutes until the doors were going to close. And I just had this like intense urge, and I fought with it. But then I just had this overwhelming urge to go see Miss Babs again, because if you've ever been to Rhinebeck, Miss Babs at the beginning of the festival is bonkers. Like, people are in line around the corner, like around the whole building. It's like a New Kids on the Block concert. Old lady. But if you wait until Sunday, the lines get much more reasonable, especially on Sunday, like after lunch. So Malia had been there looking for something earlier, and I had just not even been in that headspace. But so then we were sitting on the hill, and I was just like, I just felt compelled to go back. Now, I clearly need no yarn, but I don't know, for some reason I just felt, and so I said, do you guys mind watching my stuff? I think we can go back to Miss Babs. And Joanna Spring was like, oh my gosh, did you read my mind? It's what I was wanting to do too. So the three of us went back to Miss Babs, and I made a purchase. I have yarn to do Stephen West's Mystery Cat Knit Along, the building blocks. And it's right here. Like, I have this yarn right there to do it with. But it's like all cooler colors. And while I do wear those colors, I just didn't want to knit with them this time of year. But why am I making an excuse? I bought more yarn. It's just, you know, you're like, oh, I had that, but I needed different. I needed more. So this is what I got. What? Oh, that's right. So it's still warm colors that I love, but it's got the gray and the blue, which I think it makes it more neutrally. So I can wear it with black still. Because I love to knit with warm colors, but most of my clothing is black. Whatever, we're gray. But, okay, so this is slate. These are all Yummy 2-ply. So this one is slate, this light gray. And then the pumpkin-y color, the orangey color, is Cygnus, which I don't know what that is. And this one is Coffee Break, so the variegated is Coffee Break. And then the bluish, tealish blue is called Half Past Midnight. Right. So, I cast on for the Stephen West gal. What? It's true, I did. So I'm only on Clue. I've just started Clue 2. So if that's spoiling you, then go away for a few minutes. But he just released Clue 4, so I feel like it's spoiler time is done. But here it is so far. Wink. I'll try to stretch out a little bit for you. Right. I think this is another one. I tell you, it's hard when you do these multiple color cowls and or shawls, excuse me, and you just have this little piece, because I'm like, oh my god, I hate this section, and it's so overpowering because it's like a fourth of what you knit, but the more I add on to it, the more I am happy with my color selection. So I was totally like, no, I'm going to pass on that because I'm working on a hat design and I have Christmas socks I need to make. But then he released Clue 2 when I was at Rhinebeck, and it included brioche. And then Malia was knitting it. And then like Miss Babs was there. Caved. Totally caved. But I'm glad that I did. Because this is a color combination that I don't think I could have put together from the internets. This was definitely a good one to have the yarns there in person to do. I am knitting mine on a US 1. And in fact, when I first started, I never do a gauge swatch for a shawl. I started on a US 3, so you do this little bit down here first. I started on a US 3. It was too big. So I didn't want to redo the I-cord. So I ripped out, I'd gotten this whole section done, and I was like, no, that's too big. So I ripped it out. And then I went to a US 2, and I thought, okay. And then I got to this finished section, and I measured it, and I was like, no, that's still way off gauge-wise. And I thought, I don't know how big this thing is going to get. I don't want to run into a situation where I've run out of yarn, because 4 skeins of yarn is enough of an investment in one project that's not a sweater. So I thought, okay, so I'll go down to a 1. So then I knit this section on a 1. By the time I got done knitting this section on the 1, I hadn't taken this one apart. I thought, I'll just change over. It's just a little knob. Just a little knob right on the end. It's not going to matter. It looked crazy. Because it was at a larger gauge, it ruffled up even more. And it made it was like 50% taller than this section. So what I did was I finished my pumpkin stripe. Then I came down here. And you can totally tell if you look closely, but if you're close enough to see that, then you don't need to be worried about my shawl. But what I did was I actually just, I didn't have to cut it because the gray, you cut these ends anyway. So I just ripped out the second to last stripe. So like it ended on this pumpkin-y color stripe. I ripped out the gray stripe below it and then re-knit. So left that, like you're doing an afterthought heel. I picked up the stitches, then took out the what would have been the afterthought heel, the little ripcord, took that out and left that on a needle. So it was just live and hanging out. So then I cast on with the correct size needle, did this bit again, and then just grafted it. And I should have I grafted it, I think, in the dark while drinking, perhaps. So I did the graft wrong. Which again, you can see if you actually look, but you can't see from here. Or if you can, just tell your neighbor, feel better about yourself, but back it up. Anyway, I'm pleased with it, and that's all that matters. So yeah, that was the drama of it looked really ridiculous, and now it's much better. So there's that. Okay, so the rest of the podcast is just shameless self-promotion. Shameless self-promotion. So if you're watching it in the future, I'll tell you, see you next time. And if you're watching it in the present and you're just not interested, I'll see you next time. But if you're watching in the present and you want to see bags, I'll got some for you. Okay, so this update will be November 4th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Let me show you some bags. Okay, so first, sock size. I have, love this fabric. Cotton and steel makes the best wackadoodle color combinations of what I consider all the current manufacturers. Right. And then the inside is also really fun. So there's that one. And then these guys, because you need red birds on gray trees. That's a rule. Also, this fabric is crazy soft. I don't know what's going on with it, but it's crazy soft. And it has some red snowflakes on the inside. Okay, then the next bag I'm going to show you is actually a new size for me. It'll be called Sock Plus, I think. So it is the same shape as the sock bag, but is 25% bigger. So it's deeper too, so it doesn't show as much, but it's quite a bit deeper. So if you've used a sock bag and some people, who use double points don't like it. I like them because I like the bag to be as small as possible, that I can comfortably get my socks in and out of it, but that I can still put it in my purse or what have you, and it's going to take up as little space as possible. But I magic loop, and some people who use longer double points, I've used double points with them, I still enjoy it, but I know it's not for everybody. And also sometimes you want a smaller bag, but like this, I would not try to knit a worsted weight hat necessarily. But this is good for that. I made up a size of this for myself, and I have a hat pattern in it, and it's working just fine. So it'll still have fun printed lining. It does not have the zipper blocker thing on it. It'll have the same size handle as the regular sock bag. It's got the skinny handle, but it's a little beefier and a little deeper. Okay, so I'll have these cutie patooties, and then I'll have pets in stockings. Now, how cute are these, right? It's got a cat and a dog and a bird and a mouse, but let's not forget the humble goldfish people. Homage. How cute is that? It also has the same polka dot lining as the snow globe people. So those guys will be in there. The pricing will be closer to the small wedge pricing. For example, the sock bag right now is $25. This one will probably be $31. I know that sounds like a jump for like a bag that doesn't look that much bigger. Unfortunately, because it is just a tiny bit bigger, it takes like 25% more fabric because it creates more waste. Because fabric comes in a set width. I can't order a custom width or anything like that. That means that once you get out of certain widths for cutting, then you start wasting more fabric. And so unfortunately, this actually takes more fabric than a large wedge. I know that sounds crazy, right? No, it doesn't take more fabric, but it takes almost the same amount of fabric as a large wedge. Right. It takes more fabric than a small wedge, though, so they're closer to that price. So they're $31. The small wedge is $33. That's what I meant. They actually take more fabric than a small wedge. Okay. Sorry. So then, are you ready for these? Look at these. Don't tell the other bags, but these are my favorites. Oh my gosh. Ah! Right. Do you see that deer or reindeer? Whatever. Do you see that he has a little blanket on his back with a bird on it? Do you see that there's a squirrel that he's hanging out with? Here, you can see better on this colorway, I bet. So large wedge, both of these colorways. They both have the natural lining. They might have an extra string on them. I love these. I won't keep you many for myself, I promise. There will be a few bags that I'm not showing because the fabric is still coming in. But there are also some sweater bags. Right. This one is 1 inch narrower than a regular sweater bag, but it's the same depth and the same bottom depth, same height, same depth. So we discounted slightly. Right. How cute. Also with the natural lining. If you'd like a more traditional, right, it's like very Royal Tannenbaum, right? Okay. And he's lovely. And then I brought back 2 from last year. So if you're new to the podcast, you won't have seen these, but if you've been around for a while, you'll be like, hey, that looks familiar. It's not just you, it is. We have the awesome Nutcracker fabric. It will only be available in sweater size. And then we have these super fun guys. So this is a very limited number of bags this year that are these, but I just like them so much. Right? How cute are they? I mean, right? You need this owl. Do you see him in his hat? Just saying. I think he stole it from a hunter. I'm not against hunters. But I think he might have stolen it. He stole it from a bad hunter. A trophy hunter. That's what he did. It was like, Merry Christmas to me, bad hunter man. Because clearly it was a man. Because I'm sexist. Okay. Is that enough? That's so enough of me talking. All right. So again, that update will be November 4th at 9 p.m. Eastern. There'll be all those bags and a few more. So yay. Anyway, I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk next time.